In this video, I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes on a real wedding day on one of the hottest days of the year, where I used for the first time the brand new 85mm f1.4 full frame lens by Kase. I really put this lens to the test by trusting it to capture some of the wedding day's most important moments. So let's find out if it passed the test. Before we get into all the behind the scenes video, let me first show you the lens itself. Now, if you subscribe to my channel, you will know already that I don't really do boring old technical reviews. What I much prefer to do is show you how equipment copes on real shoots when it really matters, and that is what I'll be doing in this video. But just in case you were curious, here are all the technical details. Now, it's very important to say at this point that I was very kindly sent this lens to review by Kase, but Kase haven't asked me to say anything specific in this video. They just want me to give you my honest opinion, which is exactly what I will do. On first impressions, you'll see that this lens looks great and it's made from aluminium alloy, so it feels really well made. It has an aperture ring and an focus ring, and it also features two customizable function buttons on the side. But let's face it, the main takeaway is that this is a full frame f1.4 lens, and it's only a third of the price of the Sony G Master 85mm 1.4 lens, so it offers fantastic value. A really cool feature of this lens though, and one which I think is unique, is that the filter thread is magnetic, so you can actually add filters to the lens instantly like this. You can do the same with a lens cap too. It's very, very cool. Okay, that's the boring stuff done. On to the wedding photography, and let's see how this lens copes. The first thing to say is that I was second shooting this wedding for my partner Helen Williams, so I'd like to thank Helen for inviting me to join her. Plus, a big thank you to the amazing bride and groom, Katie and Ed, who were amazing to work with. I started the day by photographing the groom and his groomsmen outside a pub. These were literally the very first photographs that I'd ever taken with this Kase 85mm lens. Also, even though I may not have behind the scenes video for every shot that I show you in this video, please know that every photo you see in the video was taken with the Kase 85mm lens. The first thing I notice when I'm using this lens is that even at f1.4, it is very, very sharp. And you can see that here when I zoom in on this shot. It's also very quick to focus, and it's relatively small and light, so it felt great on my Sony A9 camera. It's also important to say that whether I'm photographing my own wedding or second shooting, as I am here, I always cover the majority of the wedding day in a completely documentary style. So in this video, except for a few small number of bride and groom portraits, every moment that you see me photograph was completely natural and unposed. It's also important to point out that I always photograph weddings with two cameras. The camera on my right hand side here will be a wider lens, such as a 24 or a 35mm lens, and this is the camera which I will use most on a wedding day, whereas the camera on my left hand side here will almost always be an 85mm lens. I see the wider camera, this one, as my storytelling lens, and the left hand side camera with my 85mm on it as being my more creative lens. Now, whereas the wider camera will often be set around f4, my 85mm lens will almost always be wide open. And as you will see throughout this video, almost all the photographs that you see will be taken at f1.4. And as you will see in this video, I do like to get close to the action on a wedding day. I'm certainly not one to stand back with a 7200 lens. For me, I much prefer to get in close because, in my opinion, the closer I am, the more emotional impact my photographs will have. However, I would never just want to use those photographs alone, the wider angle photographs. So the 85mm provides a different perspective and gives me different options. And it's vital to me that the 85mm lens I'm using is reliable, fast to focus, and sharp. And I will say, even at this part on the wedding day, despite it being a relatively inexpensive lens, the Kase 85mm lens was doing a great job. As As we rarely do first looks in the UK for a UK wedding, I would say that the bride walking down the aisle and the groom seeing her for the first time is probably the most important moment to photograph throughout the whole day. And it can also be the most stressful, especially if you're working in a church and especially if that church is quite strict in its rules, as it was here. I'll say no more. But in the next clip, I'm going to show you in real time how I photographed the bride and her father walking into the church and the groom's reaction as he turned round to see them walking down the aisle. Now remember, I am second shooting this wedding, so Helen is at the front and I positioned myself halfway up the aisle so that I could photograph Katie and her dad walking into the church, and then as they walked past me, I could shoot through them both and capture the moment that Ed saw Katie for the first time. Now this was a real test of the Kase 85mm 1.4 lens, because if it didn't perform well here, well, I certainly wouldn't be trusting it for the rest of the day. So I'm going to play you this clip now in real time with no cuts, and let's see how this lens did. Now, as I've just alluded to, the vicar was, shall we say, a little hard line when it came to photography. So you'll see me putting my camera down here as he walks past me, just so that I could stay in his good books. So these are the photographs that I took on the Kase 85mm, but as you'll see, I then quickly switched to the Sony 24mm for a few shots before switching back to the 85mm. Now, I got lucky here because to get a clean shot of Ed, I had to put the camera high above my head, and as you'll see, I nearly knocked over the flowers. Thanks to the Sony A9's electronic shutter, my cameras here are completely silent, and I must admit, I can't imagine now shooting a scene like this with a mechanical shutter. I then went to the back of the church for some wider shots. And again, here are some of the photographs that you've just seen me taking. And notice how, despite me shooting at f1.4, the images are all tack sharp, and the lens had no problem tracking the bride's eyes, even through the veil. So I'm pleased to report that the Kase 85mm f1.4 lens definitely did pass the bride walk into the church test. I returned to the centre of the aisle again for the rest of the ceremony. Again, the Kase 85mm lens performed really well here. Every shot that you see here was taken at f1.4, and as you'll see, every shot that I was taking was really sharp. The next big test for the Kase 85mm lens was the confetti shots, because unless the lens is able to track well with all the confetti flying around, it's very easy for focus to go astray. But the lens again performed really well, and I love all these images. As you can see, Katie and Ed were walking fast, so the lens didn't have it easy, but it coped very well. As it was the Confetti, and as it is so easy to lose focus during Confetti runs like this, I did take these images at f3.2 rather than f1.4. But even so, this lens did a great job, and every one of these photographs is bang in focus. Now, one of the jobs I always try to do as a second shooter is to take lots of detail shots throughout the day. For me, these are pretty boring and naff, but I know that they need to be taken. But by me taking them, it means that Helen doesn't need to worry about them, and it frees her up so that she can concentrate on capturing the moments. Once I captured the details, I will then try and capture as many natural moments as I can. Again, for this part of the day, I will try and use my wider lens, this one, much more than the 85mm here, because as I said earlier, I do much prefer images which are taken on a wider focal length closer to the action. But as you will see, I do still use the 85mm quite a lot here as well. Now, I will just say at this point, I did have a problem with this lens on the wedding day, but it's very, very important to say that this could well have been down to user error or the conditions on the day. Say it was so hot. So what was the problem? Well, this lens features an aperture ring, as many lenses do. Now, an aperture ring allows you, just get this into focus, to change the aperture of the lens on the lens itself like this, rather than having to use the dials here. I don't use aperture rings. Even if I've got one on the lens that I'm using, I just prefer to have the aperture ring in auto, and I change my aperture using the dials that I normally would with any other lens. But on this wedding day, I did find, I think it happened twice, maybe 3 times, rather than the aperture ring being in auto, as I would like it to be, it was just clicking over to f16. And when you shoot in manual, as I do, that obviously is going to have a huge impact on the exposure that you're seeing through the EVF. I did actually think, oh, have I left the lens cap on? Because the shot, rather than being well exposed, suddenly went to being very, very underexposed because I'd gone from auto and probably had the aperture at 1.4, and instantly I was going to f16 without realizing it, and that is what caused the problem. However, as I say, I think it's very important to say that this could have been down to how I was holding the camera. I did have this extension arm on, but what I think it's more likely down to is the hot weather, because 2 things were happening. I was sweating a lot. That meant I would have been doing this all the time. My hand would be sweaty, and that may have just made my hand slip and move the aperture ring, or because it was so hot, it may be that this aperture ring loosened slightly in the hot weather, and it just made it a bit easy to just knock like that. That would be my guess. I will say that now that I'm back and in my office, the aperture ring is quite not hard to move, but it's not loose. But I thought it was worth mentioning for the interest of being completely transparent. It did happen a couple of times, but as I say, I think there's probably a very good reason for it. Helen is amazing at group shots, and she always likes to inject fun into them. She was on her 50mm lens here for these group shots, so I could stay behind her and shoot the same thing on the Kase 85mm. I really like these shots. I think they look great. Notice how Helen has positioned the group so that they are backlit, which gives the people nice rim light behind them, but it also means that they have nice even light on their faces. Plus, Helen has placed them in front of a dark background, which together with the rim light behind them really makes them pop.
You go wherever you want, I'm gonna stay behind you.
When you're ready, arms in the air, sing in Kase! Looking at each
Lift your arms up so they're wrapped round your waist. That's it, nice.
Next up, we took the couple off for literally 2 minutes for some portraits whilst all the guests were being seated for the wedding breakfast. The light at this point was still very, very harsh, but we posed Katie and Ed to try and really make the most of the natural light. I really love these walking shots. Again, these shots work because we asked Katie and Ed to walk towards us with the bright sun behind them, which again means that they are rim lit by the sun. And I composed these shots so that the background behind them both was very dark. The backlight combined with the dark background really makes them stand out, and this is a great way to take portrait photographs when you're shooting in harsh light. Just to remind you, all the images that you see in this video were edited with my Lightroom preset pack, which you can purchase from my website. The pack contains my base presets, 26 magic masks and 18 brushes, as well as a 2-hour editing tutorial video in which I show you exactly how I use the tools in the preset pack to edit 100 photographs in Lightroom. Next up were the speeches. Now, if you follow me in my work, you'll probably already know that I love to use off-camera flash during speeches. I have a 3-light setup which I always try to use during speeches, and I've shot this way for over 10 years now. However, the setup of this marquee together with the crazy bright light made it practically impossible to use my setup well, because as you will see, Katie and Ed were sat on the very edge of the marquee facing away from the light. Now, Helen and I did set up 2 off-camera lights each inside the marquee. You'll see 4 lights, but 2 were mine and 2 were Helen's on different channels, and those lights were both aiming towards Katie and Ed, bouncing against the ceiling. But because the light was so strong, we had to be in high speed sync, and because of that we had to turn the speed light power up so much, and we were using AD200s, that it didn't really have that much of an effect. It did fill in some of the shadows, but not a huge amount. So instead, my tactic was to shoot the top table purposely underexposed so that I wasn't losing too many highlights, and then I brought back the shadow details in post. And to be fair, I think it's worked really nicely. As you probably know if you follow me in my work, I love to shoot through things on the top table during speeches, and if you do that with a really wide aperture on an 85mm lens, the bokeh that you can create can look amazing. The Kase 85mm with its f1.4 aperture makes it perfect for this. Oh, and top tip, never put your camera down when the speech is finished, as some of the best and the most heartfelt moments happen when the speeches have just finished, just as you can see happening here. I shot these moments on my 24mm lens, so you won't see the images in this video, but it's an important tip to share. Here is another example of how impressive the autofocus and the tracking is on the Sony A9 with the Kase 85mm lens, because even at f1.4 I was able to capture a sharp picture of the dog as it ran towards me. Now when the dancing starts, I will often go down to just one camera, and that camera will be this one on my right hand side, and it will almost always have my Sony G Master 16-35mm f2.8 lens on it, as I like to get really close to the action on a very wide focal length. So I didn't photograph any of the dancing on the 85mm lens, but as you can see, the dance floor was amazing. I did, however, use it for a short time after the first dance, just to capture what was happening outside of the marquee. I would like to thank Kase for very kindly sending me their new 85mm f1.4 full frame lens to review. I really enjoyed using the lens and I would definitely recommend it. It's faster focus, it produces really lovely bokeh, and for the price, it's fantastic value. As always, if you have any questions about anything I've done in this video, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.